You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
What's going on, Los Angeles? Happy New Year. Welcome to the LA Football Show here in the LA Football Network and on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. Thank you all for tuning in, making us a part of your day. Hope everyone had a fantastic holiday season, bowl season. It's been, the end of the NFL season's ramping up, and obviously the new year now as we are fully into January here in rainy Los Angeles. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined as always by the madman, Jamal Madney. We are kicking the year off with some UCLA talk here. But before we get into that and talk about the Sun Bowl and projections for this UCLA team, my friend, Happy New Year. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Ryan. Excited to be talking about all of our teams into 2023 and lots to get into in terms of projections, what to look at next year, and just the overall landscape of LA football.
Absolutely. So before we get all into it, we do want to at least acknowledge and mention, and I think happily talk about for the first time in a few days, obviously a very scary situation on Monday night. Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills. Everyone knows what happened by now. We don't get into it. But we at least want to mention that, it was a heavy moment. It was a big moment in not just the football world, not just the sports world, but just in the world. I mean, a human life was at risk there on the field, and it is very encouraging to see now here on, the time of this recording, Thursday, Friday, whenever you are listening, that the positive news, it continues to grow from, Hamlin and the hospital and from the doctors and all the stuff that they've been able to do and all the progression he's made. So scary stuff, but awesome to see his progression. But Jamal, I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts on it and what was going through your mind, because obviously it was a big deal that hit all of us.
Yeah, Ryan, I think it was a very profound time and period and moment. And I think it really shook all of us up. I know you and I, and then some of the other members of the LA Football Network, we had some pretty deep, involved conversations over this week. It certainly shook me very deeply. And I was part feeling guilty. I was part upset. I was part angry. I think it's one of these things where you take a step back and you almost look at human nature a little bit and say, we love this game so much, but it's a game where people could lose their lives. And have we really evolved as human beings from the days of watching the gladiators, come to death and that era enjoying that form of entertainment so much, and this era enjoying this form of entertainment so much? Have we really evolved as a society? Have we really evolved as a species? And so I sort of went to those places, but I was really just heartbroken for Damar Hamlin, his family, watching all of the players' reactions. I certainly choked up. I was in tears, and it really affected me in a deep and profound way. And I was just so happy today to hear about the progress that Damar Hamlin has made, that he was able to wake up, that the doctor said not only are all the lights are on, but he's home and the neurological function is coming back. And I just thought it was so touching when he woke up. The first thing he wrote down was who won the game. And the doctor said, you won, because you won the game of life, because it looks like, by all indications, fingers crossed, that he's going to make it. And the last 24 to 48 hours, he's shown remarkable improvement. And I think it's also a testament to the Bills training staff and how quickly they were able to identify the situation, give him CPR, and send him to the hospital. And all the doctors said the timeliness of the CPR that he got was absolutely critical to him surviving. That it was essentially the Bills staff that essentially saved his life. And it was, the one person in particular was Denny Kellington of the Bills, who was the athletic trainer who gave Damar Hamlin CPR. And I tweeted this earlier in the week, Ryan, that Denny Kellington, in my mind, should be NFL Man of the Year. I don't think it's even a conversation. I think it's the most no-brainer thing that we could do in sports for literally saving that young kid's life. And, just the fact that he was so close to death, and we saw the reactions from folks like Ryan Clark and others, Dan Orlovsky praying on air, just the rawness of everything that we saw. I just went through the gamut of emotions. I'm very proud of us as a network that we chose not to record any show this week out of respect for Damar and hopefully his journey to getting back. And so my heart was so heavy this week, Ryan, but it's becoming lighter as the days go by, because I'm hearing about the progress, and I think Damar's going to make it. And I'm also so encouraged by humanity, in that the toy drive that Damar Hamlin is so passionate about was sitting at a couple of $1,000s in donations at the time of the accident, and now it's crossed 7 million. So just folks finding ways to help in any way they can, because you feel so helpless, and folks relying on the power of prayer. And I think one other theme I've seen is that in times of crisis, it's the people that have sort of a belief in a higher power that seem to be strong and have inner peace. And really, that's the way that they can contribute. And I thought Nick Wright said something very interesting earlier this week. He said, I was almost envious as someone who doesn't, and I'm speaking for him, as someone who doesn't believe necessarily in a cosmic power, higher power. I found myself envious of those that do, because they found serenity, they found peace, they found strength in this time of crisis in a way that I could not. And so I think so much was these little intricacies of human nature were revealed this week, Ryan, and I'm just so thrilled that it looks like Damar's going to make it. And it's the best news that we could have gotten at any point.
Yeah, huge improvement, which is so exciting. It's been great seeing the NFL community surround him with love in terms of teammates and players and coaches and former players and former coaches and media and all alike, kind of all just, we're all human beings at the end of the day. So that was the positive of it. You mentioned it. Great seeing how that medical staff, how they were able to essentially at this point save this man's life. And had they not worked so fast and so intricately, we might be having a different conversation here a few days later. So impressive to see. And I'll just say quickly, and I'm definitely not making this about me, but I mean, it was one of those moments because of it being a cardiac thing and a heart. It hit real close with me, losing a grandmother to a heart attack. Not obviously the same situation, but because of a heart attack, having my daughter who spent the first 5 months of her life in the hospital, having 3 open heart surgeries. So just knowing the power of the heart, obviously the necessity of the heart, it definitely, struck a chord in that. So it's just so good to see all the improvement, and we will continue praying and supporting from us personally and as a network and as a community, and just hoping just keep making those steps of progression of improvement. So, but wanted to at least mention that, and very, very happy to say that stuff is getting better. So that is great to see. So, well, I mean, it's never great to transition from that, but at least it's ending positively. So now we can get into some UCLA football talk. Our Bruins, it's been, over a week now, but our Bruins fall to the Pitt Panthers at the Sun Bowl. It was a game, Jamal, that I was never really worried, even with the mistakes kind of piling up and the turnovers. And I was like, the UCLA's got this. The offense was just moving with so much ease. And unfortunately, having those turnovers obviously cost them points and ultimately cost them the game. But I was never at fear of a loss until the clock hit 0. And I was like, oh, wow, UCLA just lost this game, did not get to 10 wins, still had no bowl wins for Chip Kelly, for DTR in these 5 years. We don't got to talk a ton about the game. I want to talk more of the future, but just quickly, kind of your thoughts on the game. Cause I know it was a big disappointment for us, just seeing how the season went, seeing how the game went. And now it just feels like such a, I don't want to say wasted season, but definitely not the season we were hoping for, and the season that was progressing along and then ending this way.
Yeah, Ryan, it was a tragic end to a free fall. I think that's the only way to really describe it. This team was sitting at 8-1 going into that game against Arizona in the middle of November, with still everything to play for. Pac-12, Rose Bowl, possible CFP. We were at that time talking, a possible dark horse / Doak Walker scenario for Charbonnet and or DTR. And now you fast forward the final 4 games, losing 3 of the final 4 games, and in the manner that they did, Ryan. And what's most heartbreaking and tragic is how this ends for DTR, because 3 of the final 4 losses were really based on DTR having the ball with the game on the line against Arizona, coming up empty. DTR with the ball with the game on the line against SC, that final drive coming up empty. And then DTR in the fourth quarter of trying to salt this game away against Pitt, throwing a few inexplicable interceptions, getting to 3 interceptions, and that sort of opened the door for a Pitt team that really struggled moving the ball offensively through the air, given that they had a backup quarterback, they had a backup running back, they had 2 of their best defensive players missing. And so you're gutted for him. He's the greatest competitor in the history of UCLA football. And the start that they had was just remarkable. He was able to throw the ball down the field, and he had a down the field accuracy that we just hadn't seen all year, and hitting Cam Brown, hitting TMA, and really kind of creating verticality in the pass game. UCLA racing out in front, and a couple of moments there, Ryan, up 14-6, a chance to really lay down the hammer, pick up, again, 28-14, opportunity to lay down the hammer, pick again, having the ball 28-21, chance to extend to 2 possessions, pick. And so you're gutted for him in how this ends, but and the fact that he still was 4 yards shy of Cade McNown's all-time passing record, and he was about 4 yards shy with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and you thought this was going to be a foregone conclusion, and even Nance and some of the CBS guys were just kind of waiting for it, and it just never happened. It never came. And then to see him get hurt and not even be able to finish the game, it was really heartbreaking over these last 5 years. But I think the road now has been paved, that Chip has his system, Chip has a style of play, Chip has a strategy, where this 9 wins and the 8 wins before now set the stage for the Dante Moore era, for this next era of UCLA football. And I think that's what the lasting legacy of DTR and Chip will be in these 5 years, that they paved the road to bring UCLA football back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, UCLA diehards may feel differently, but I mean, in my opinion, this is obviously disappointing to the season, disappointing game, but UCLA as a program is going to be fine. I mean, you said it all. I think Chip has built kind of and we'll talk about maybe the defense here in a bit before we wrap up, but at least in terms of offensive identity, in terms of running game prowess, in terms of now the transfer portal, like UCLA football is going to be fine. What was really heartbreaking, and you said it too, but it's just how this ends for DTR. That was my biggest takeaway from this game, is a guy that, like him or love him, I think over the years there's been back and forth. I think at now year 5, most of the fan base has come to love DTR. I'd say, and how can you not? But like or love, no one can deny how much he put into this program and how much dedication, leadership, prowess, mentality, all these different adjectives and words we could say about him, how much he gave to the University of California, Los Angeles, and the Bruin program. And it was just, you said it was just heartbreaking to see him playing, even with the interceptions, playing so well in the first, in terms of, the passing yards, the rushing yards, the swagger, almost getting the second unsportsmanlike, but then, hands the football back and praise the ref. Like, it was so DTR, and it was fun. It was electric. And then to have a really poor third quarter, I think 2 for 9 or something like that was his completion per attempts, and 4 yards shy of the record, not finishing the game due to, the back injury, watching him wincing on the sidelines, the towel overhead, tears in his eyes, going to the locker room, coming back. And so that is just like, even if they were to lose, but not having him being able to finish, that was my biggest heartbreak. And, he'll go down as the greatest UCLA competitor and, top 5 UCLA quarterback of all time, statistically, obviously top 1 and 2, but, yeah, just really felt for that young man. And obviously he'll be on an NFL roster. I think we both think he'll be a late round draft pick, if he doesn't for whatever reason, I think he'll definitely be a walk-on someone and definitely be in a training camp. So his football career is not done yet and still very raw and still has a lot of potential to even grow even more than he has over these 5 years, which is crazy to say. But yeah, that was my biggest takeaway, Jamal. I was just very, very disappointed, heartbroken for Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Yeah, Ryan, we got the full DTR experience, and you mentioned it, and I equate him to the UCLA football version of Russell Westbrook. You know, you look at that first half, and he's dropping dimes, he's getting unsportsmanlike penalties, he's throwing interceptions, he's dropping snaps, he's talking smack, he's engaging with everyone, and so it was just the full DTR experience. So in many ways, it was very poetic that was his last game, because you had the ups, you had the downs. You had the unbelievable highest of the highs and then lowest of the lows, and that was essentially his career. And I think moving forward, though, Ryan, two big questions, I think, emerge here. The first, which is a little bit lesser, is the retooling now of this team on the offensive side of the ball. And obviously losing Charbonnet, losing DTR, losing Bobo, losing Kaz Allen, but then also losing 3 of 5 starters on the offensive line. When you look at John Gaines, Raekwon O'Neal, and Antonio Mafi. And obviously reinforcements are on their way through the transfer portal. The great lineman from Purdue has committed to UCLA. And just recently, UCLA's brought in now Carson Steele, the max top running back, 1,556 yards rushing, 5.4 yards per carry, 900-yard games this past year, second in the country in forced missed tackles, and fourth in the country in yards after contact. So Steele, along with Anthony Adkins from Army, the Army transfer, I think is going to bring tremendous power to this rushing attack. And then when you combine that with the smoothness of TJ Harden and the speed of Keegan Jones, I think this offense from a running perspective is not going to miss a beat going into 2023. I think they got to shore up a little bit more on the O-line. But I think Chip has his system in place in the backfield, and I think it's going to be a very compelling quarterback battle as well between Dante Moore, between Garbers, and between Schlee. And I think that even everything that Chip has been talking about, that this should be a really fun battle, given that Moore is so young as a true freshman. Could one of these veterans beat him out for a year before the keys are handed to the kingdom with Moore? And then I think that the bigger issue is, what do you do on the defensive side of the ball? Now, Stephen Blaylock, Mo Osling III have declared for the NFL, still waiting on what Latu and Muasau do. But I think there's the possibility of both of those guys going pro, and how McGovern kind of evolves in year 2, because a lot of folks were very unhappy with the defense, and rightfully so. And reinforcements need to be on the way. But Ryan, I go back to, this is a very special time offensively in the history of the Pac-12. When you look at the quarterbacks and the quality of these offenses, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., DJ Uliungalale now at Oregon State, Delora, Cam Ward, the list just goes on and on here. Cam Rising potentially coming back at Utah. These offenses are just so far ahead of these defenses. Even Utah being the top defense in the Pac-12, giving up 40 to SC at home, would have given up 40 plus to SC again in the Pac-12 title game if Caleb Williams doesn't get hurt. So I think all the folks that are really unhappy with the defense, rightfully so, but I think you need to just be a credible defense. As you've always said, how do you get those 4 to 7 stops a game? How do you get a turnover or two? How do you force a drive that ends in a field goal? Because the reality is, we're just in the equivalent of the steroid era of the Pac-12 in terms of offense. These offenses are so far ahead of the defense. We have to sort of reset expectations, at least for next year, about what a defense is capable of against these NFL quality quarterbacks. So I think UCLA has work to do in the transfer portal. I think McGovern having a full, healthy season on the sideline, being able to make in-game adjustments, being able to do some tweaks. There was a huge shift. UCLA gave up about 7 more points per game in the games that McGovern wasn't on the sideline than in the games that he did. And just think about that. That 7 points could have been huge. Lost to Arizona by 6, lost to USC by 3, Pitt by 2. So if you got those 7 more points defensively in terms of fewer allowed, you're looking at a team that instead of being 9-4 is now potentially 12-1. And so I think that those are the tweaks that UCLA needs to look at. And for everyone who is thinking the sky is falling down defensively, yes, but I think they're closer to credibility than we realize. And credibility is the best you can do in the Pac-12 next year from a defensive standpoint.
Well, I think they're closer to credibility than their rivals in USC. So I think UCLA fans can take solace in that. And last thing I'll say, because of course we're already out of time, but it's hard to really fully judge McGovern in the season because, as you mentioned, he missed so much time out with the health concerns. So it's hard to really see what he really could do with a full season, getting more of his own guys in, recruits that fit his system, transfers that fit his system, which now we will see going into year 2. So disappointing way for this year to end, but a lot of good things still on the horizon. They're currently ranked 4th in the transfer portal. That is UCLA. So we will have plenty more UCLA coverage all off season long. We're not going anywhere. 2 shows a week still from us here in the LA Football Show. We got to take a quick break. So that's it for the UCLA segment. Talk to you guys all again soon.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.